Hey everyone, welcome. Today's class is just like the title that says post-workout stretch. So this is going to be a little bit on the shorter side, but we'll just make sure to kind of cover all those little parts of our bodies that get a little tight after doing really any kind of workout. So if you went walking or hiking, running, cycling, even heavy lifting, like um, similar parts of the bodies tend to get stiff. So we're going to work it out. So with that, let's actually start in a seat today. So we're just going to start in a comfortable seated position. You could sit with your legs crossed the way I'm going to start, or you can always start with your knees together. And just take a moment to ground yourself. So really feel the points of contact of like your seat or your shins touching the ground. And if it feels okay for you to close your eyes, take a moment to close the eyes or just soften the gaze. And see if you can bring your fingertips to the ground. Or if your whole palm is flat on the ground, that works too. And lengthen up tall through the crown of your head. And give yourself a moment to imagine grounding your energy. Maybe you just finished a workout, so it's sometimes nice to just slow things down before doing something else. Take a big breath in through the nose. And then open mouth exhale. One more time, breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth. And then start to drop your chin down towards your chest. Try not to round your back at all so that this movement is just happening from the neck. And then start to make some little circular motions. Start with half circles. So dropping the chin to the chest, then letting your head rotate from side to side and let the head just be heavy. And you might notice right away any kind of tension or just tightness in the upper back and in the shoulders. The next time that your head is all the way over to your left, just go ahead and stay there, letting the head kind of dangle. Take a deep breath in and a big exhale. Let your head sway all the way to the opposite side. So right ear towards the right shoulder, and just take a moment to pause. Take a breath in and a breath out. And then let your head maybe make some big full circles rather than half circles. So letting the head tilt back. But if that doesn't feel good for you, you can always skip it. And then after you've done that a couple of times, allow your head to come back to a neutral position. Roll your shoulders up towards your ears. And as you exhale, roll them down the back. Do that again. Roll them up and down the back. And then start to reach your arms out in front of you, palms face each other. And then start to round your back and lean back while reaching your fingertips forward. And on your breath in, let your arms reach up overhead, coming into shoulder flexion. And notice if you've started to back bend already, and can you keep your ribs kind of knitted and compressed down so that your diaphragm and your pelvic floor are stacking over one another. It's a neutral spine. And then start to turn your palms to face out away from each other. Try not to go into a big back bend quite yet, and start to reach your arms back behind you. Notice my elbows are starting to bend. You can start to bend your elbows. Try not to get into that back bend quite yet. I know it's really tempting. And then allow your fingers to come back behind you. Now we allow for the back bend. So allow the chest to lift, allow the chin to lift. And then from here, we'll start that all over again. So sweep your arms out in front of you and round your back and tuck the chin and allow yourself to lean back. And then as you breathe in, come all the way up, arms overhead, neutral spine, palms face out, and then back behind you without going into a back bend as long as possible. Fingertips come to the floor, lift up through the chest, find the back bend here for spinal extension. Let's do this one more round. So round your back, reach your arms forward like you're trying to reach for somebody, and then extend the arms overhead into shoulder flexion, neutral ribs, arms face, our palms face out as you reach back, bend the elbows, release the fingertips to the ground, find your little back bend here, lift up, and then come back to a neutral spine. And if your legs are crossed, great. If they're not, find a cross-legged position and cross your right leg in front of your left and start to walk your hands out in front of you and fold over your legs. So the right leg is forward and you're just folding here. Lift up through the chest and refold. And then walk the hands back in, rise up, switch the cross of the legs. So your left leg is crossed in front of your right, and then fold. So if this feels really challenging for your body, all right, some people, like when they sit cross-legged, their knees are pretty high up. If that's the case for you, that's okay. I want you to place a blanket or a bolster underneath you, because the higher you elevate your hips, the easier it's going to feel for your knees. And we want to feel a stretch in these outer glutes. So that's the target muscle. You might feel it in your back though. You might feel this in your quads and other parts of the body. So that's all good. Okay, let's come back up. Cross your right leg in front of the left again, but this time take your left leg back behind you. So we're coming into a 90-90 position with our legs. Frame the front right leg and inhale. Think about finding cow pose. So cow is that interior tilt of the ribs. So think a little back bend in the upper body and you're like trying to lift your tail. And then think as you lean back, cat spine. So flexing through the spine. You might not have very much range of motion, like I really don't, but see if you can just feel into what a cat-cow movement with your legs in this shape feels like for you. My hips are pretty tight, so that left hip is kind of talking to me as I do this, but not in a bad way. Okay, so find like a neutral kind of halfway point, upright through the spine. You're probably leaning to your right a little bit. That's all right. Try not to lean too much. Walk the hands forward and lift your left ankle off the ground. Flex through the left ankle as well, so active leg. Hold the left ankle as high as you can and then try to lift the left knee and hover the left knee off the ground and hold there, breathe in. Try not to go too much far to the right. Breathe out and release knee and ankle. Let's do that 2 more times. Lift the ankle first as high as you can, then try to hover the left knee. I know it's a lot. Breathe in. And then exhale, release the knee and the ankle. And we're going to do that 1 more time. Lift the ankle off the ground as high as you can, and then the knee hovers. And if the knee doesn't hover, lean a little further to the right until you can hover it. And hold there and breathe in, and then release. Walk the hands back behind you. We're going to take it all the way to the other direction. So now your left leg is in front and your right leg is back behind you, but this time passive stretch over your left leg. So we were doing some active stretching by lifting the left ankle and knee on the what we were just doing. That's some really good mobility work for our end ranges of our hip joint. And here we're just like kind of softening into all that work. Take a couple rounds of breath. And if you're on your forearms like me, make your way back up to your hands. Take a couple of those cat-cow movements. So think about this moving from the spine, right? In your ribs. As you breathe in, you let your ribs anteriorly tilt. As you breathe out, you externally tilt. Or posterior tilt, not external. Except our ribs do actually, but that's a whole thing. Just find some cat-cow movements, rounding and extending through the spine. All right, and then find kind of like a neutral place. Make your hands kind of frame the front left leg. And first, active through your back right leg, lift the ankle off the ground as high as you can, as high as you can. You might even feel a little butt cramps, and that's good. That means that like this is the work that you need. And try to hover the right knee off of the ground without leaning too much to the left, but lean as far as you need to in order to lift it off the ground. Hold there, breathe in, keep lifting the ankle and knee. Big breath in and release. Let's do it 2 more times. First, lift right ankle off the ground as high as you can. And then hover the knee off of the ground. Breathe in through the nose, out through the mouth. Try to hold here. And release. 1 more time. Hover the ankle first as high as you can. Bring it up off the ground and then hover the knee off the ground. Hold there. Breathe, breathe, breathe. Slow breaths in through the nose. Slow breaths out through the mouth. Release. Walk the hands back behind you. Take the knees all the way over to the right again. And this time fold over the right leg. You can come down onto your forearms for a little passive stretch there. And this is really good work to do even before a workout. So if this is your pre-workout stretch, that's great too. Doing really good stuff here. Take another breath in and then start to make your way back up. You can walk your hands behind you and just kind of let your legs go from side to side. And the next time that your right knee, the inside of your right knee is moving towards the floor, let it stay there. Get a little internal rotation of your hip joint. And then switch sides. Drop the left knee down towards the ground. Oh, one side is always so much more for me. I just did a ride. I just did a cycling ride. So it feels really good on my hips. All right. And release that. Let's find our way to all fours. Come into a tabletop position. Let's give our feet some love. So tuck the toes underneath you. Press your hips all the way back towards your heels. Keep your hands on the ground. And just keep pressing back, stretching the bottoms of your feet. You can walk your hands a little closer towards your knees and come up onto the fingertips. And then keep your toes tucked underneath you. Start to lift your knees off of the ground and press your heels to the ground. I'm sorry, yeah, lift your knees, press the heels down. Nice big calf stretch. And this is great for our ankles as well. We'll do that again. Drop the knees back down to the ground. Keep the toes tucked underneath you. Sit the hips back onto the heels. Maybe you want to add a little bit more and you come all the way upright through the spine, stacking your shoulders over your hips. Breathing. And then bring your hands back down to the ground and lift the knees off of the ground. So kind of bringing the knees towards your chest as you take your hips and heels towards the ground. Let's do the opposite of this. So untuck the toes underneath you, and you can sit your hips onto your heels and keep the hands in front of you. This might feel like enough. If you've got a little bit more space to go to find a little bit more sensation, you can walk the hands behind you and hover your knees off the ground. So this is going to be a nice big ankle stretch. It can feel pretty intense. Release that. Come all the way up onto your knees from here and step your right foot forward. Keep your hips pretty stacked over the back knee and reach your arms out in front of you and round your spine, just like we did earlier. Same movement here. Think about pressing the back of your heart back behind you. Think about that left hip point moving forward so you feel stretched through the front of the hip there. And then on your inhale, you'll reach the arms overhead into shoulder flexion, neutral in the ribs and spine. Think about pulling your right hip back. In fact, take your right fingertips to the right hip crease and draw it back so that your hips are pretty squared here. Reach the arms back overhead, palms face out this time. Start to reach back like someone's pulling on your hands, and try not to go into a back bend with the ribs. And then eventually take your hands to your low back. You can interlace your fingers or place them at the low back, whatever feels better. And if you have them interlaced, maybe you pull your fist down towards the ground. Oof. Release the bind. Take your hands down to the ground, frame your front foot, and then find half splits. So lift the toes, slide your right heel forward, keep a little bend in that right knee, and then think about digging your right heel into the ground. Take your hands to your hips or your right hand to your hip crease and pull the right hip back, like adjust yourself, like you're pushing the hip back and the left hip goes forward. So keeping that, if you have blocks, is a great place to put your hands on blocks. I'm sorry, I should have probably instructed for that. And then let's go ahead and plant the right foot. Let's give the left knee a little break. Tuck the left toes, lift the back knee off of the ground, and press back through your left heel until you feel a big stretch through the back of the left leg. And let's just kind of rock the hips a little forward and back. You can bend the back knee as you inhale and hinge the hips forward. Straighten the legs as you let the hips go back. And just kind of do this rocking motion. Also sometimes called cat-cow lunges, but focusing a little bit more on the legs rather than folding and rounding the spine. But if that's there for you, take it. And then let's find our way into a forward fold. So both feet to the front of your mat. Walk your feet all the way mat width apart so they're kind of wide, and turn the toes out and your heels in. And start to bend your knees and sit your hips back just for a moment, and then straighten the legs and fold. Do that 2 more times. Breathe in, bend the knees, lift the chest like you're in a halfway lift. You can take your elbows to the thighs for some support, and then straighten and fold. 1 more time, breathe in, halfway lift. Exhale, fold. And then turn the toes to point forward. And bend your knees and just let yourself fold here. Maybe grab opposite elbows and rock a little side to side. And then lift it halfway, reach your hands towards the floor. Round your spine here. So the same motion that we've kind of been doing. And then you do that all the way up to standing. Reach your arms out in front of you as their spine lengthens. You don't have to really round your spine here. And then reach the arms up overhead. Turn the palms to face out, and then all the way back behind you. Take the hands to your low back. You could interlace your fingers. Now find a back bend by lifting the chest. Release, reach your arms forward all the way up. Grab a hold of your right wrist. Step your right foot behind your left. and find a side body stretch over to the left. So you're grabbing your right wrist with your left hand. Your right foot is behind you. If you like that, you can bend your left knee and really press your hips towards the right. And then think about rounding your spine a little bit here. Like you're reaching your fingertips almost towards the floor. Release, come back up. Release the grip, switch sides. Step your left foot behind your right. Find a side body stretch to your right this time. So you're grabbing hold of the left wrist and then kind of round your chest. Like you're trying to take your left shoulder towards the ground. So that we're kind of avoiding a back bend here. And then come all the way back up. Release your arms down by your sides. Roll the shoulders up and down the back. A couple times like that. And then let's come all the way down, forward fold, step back, high plank, drop your knees, tabletop pose, inhale, cow pose, drop the belly, lift the tail, lift the chin, exhale, cat pose. Walk your hands in towards the knees, stand up, hands can go to your hips. This time we step the left foot forward, right knee is down, arms reach out in front of you. Think about rounding your spine. If you were to take your left thumb to your left hip crease, gently draw it back so that your hips feel pretty squared. Breathe in, reach the arms up overhead, turn the palms to face out. Exhale, bend the elbows and open up through the chest. And then take your hands down to the ground and then frame the front foot, but slide your left heel forward so that you can lift the left toes off the ground and find half splits. And take this variation that feels really good for you. Right hands could be on blocks. Lengthening the chest over the leg, breathing. Take one more breath in here. And out. Think about drawing the left hip back, right hip forward, hips squared, and then bend your front knee. Tuck your right toes, lift your right knee off the ground. Hands can frame the front foot or your hands could be on blocks. And just think about rocking the hips forward and back, coming into a little cow lunge and then cat lunge. Just doing that a few times. And then this time, instead of a forward fold, find a wide-legged forward fold. Pivot your feet to face the right side of your mat. I'm going to turn around. So your feet are wide apart. And make sure that your toes are facing forward. So your feet are parallel to one another. Press into the outside edges of your feet. Bend your knees a little. And then just one at a time, bend your left knee, straighten the right leg. Back through center, straighten the left leg, bend the right leg. Just going side to side. Nice and gentle, nice and easy. Maybe you shorten your stance a little if it feels like too much of a inner thigh stretch. And then you could even sink your hips towards the ground and lift one toe towards the sky. Doing a little bit more mobility work, so also known as Skandasana. You could think about bending your one knee, turning those toes out, sinking the hips towards the heels, and then the opposite toes lift up towards the ground. So you can always move into that variation if that feels good. And then we'll end in a wide-legged forward fold, just letting yourself hang out here. Find a halfway lift, turn your heels in, your toes out, bend your knees, take your elbows to your thighs, use the elbows to help press the thighs open. You can drop shoulder, and then turn the toes forward, forward fold. So now you're in kind of a shorter stance. We're going to do that a couple times. Turn your heels and your toes out, bend your knees, sink your hips. Maybe hips go towards the ground. Lift the hips, turn the toes forward. Stance is getting shorter. Heels in, toes out, bend the knees. Now we're almost like in a little squat. Lift the hips, turn the toes forward, forward fold. One last time, heels in, toes out. Heels are almost touching, and then the heels can lift off the ground as you sit the hips down, coming into a little crouch. And then lift your chest up, let your hips come down to the ground, just take a seat. And from here, turn to face the front of your mat. Let your legs extend out nice and long. Give them a little shake. Come all the way onto your back. Pull your right knee up into your chest. Interlace your fingers on top of the right shin. Get active through your left leg. So dorsiflex the left ankle, toes are pointing up. Pull your right knee kind of around the rib cage. Breathe in. And then exhale, find supine twist. Drag the knee across your body. Right arm extends out to the right. You can always bend your left leg if that feels better on your back. Bring your right knee back in through center. And then pull your left knee in as well. Send your right leg up towards the sky. And then lengthen the right leg all the way forward and down as you pull the left knee towards your chest or towards the left shoulder. Breathe in. And then find your twist here. And then come back through center, pull the knees into your chest. Reach your feet up towards the ceiling or sky, maybe you're outside. Take your hands behind your hamstrings or anywhere that feels comfortable and roll out your ankles in some circular motions. Maybe point and then flex, point, flex. If you're near a wall, you could take legs up the wall pose with your legs up against the wall. If you have a block, you could place a block under your low back. And then pull the knees into your chest or stay in legs up the wall pose if you're using a wall. Then constructive rest pose, feet wide, knees together, let your arms open down by your sides. Take a deep breath in through your nose. Exhale out through the mouth. Breathe into the front of your ribs, the sides of your ribs, and the back ribs. Breathe out through the mouth. One more. Breathe in. Fill all the way up. Front ribs, sides, back body. Breathe out through the mouth. I bring my hands together at heart center. And from my heart to yours, I humbly bow. Thank you so much. Feel free to just stay here lying down as long as you need. Let your nervous system receive all the benefits of just laying down.